Quilting is a lot of fun. It can be relaxing, creative, and rewarding, but there are 3 pretty significant safety hazards to keep an eye on. I call them the triangle of danger. I'm talking about your sewing machine, your rotary cutter, and your iron. Quilters tend to go from one to the next in a steady repetition. You trim your fabric, you sew your fabric, you press your fabric, and then you do it again and again until you've finished your quilt top. So let's talk about how to protect yourself while you quilt. I just need to do a real quick disclaimer here. You obviously know yourself and your environment better than I do, so stay vigilant. There's no way that I can foresee every scenario in which you might hurt yourself, so I beg you to use your best judgment and keep an eye out for other dangers in your sewing space. First up, rotary cutters. Every rotary cutter is equipped with a 360-degree circular blade, so there's a lot of room for error there. So always try to be super careful with your rotary cutter. It's time to make a cut. Since I am right-handed, this is my cutting edge here. If you're left-handed, you're going to use this side for your cutting edge. And you want your rotary cutter to make contact with that cutting edge. The number 1 rotary safety tip is to not let your fingers hang over the cutting edge. So people might sometimes accidentally put it way down here and make their cut and then be like, oh no, and then they run out of time and they end up slicing their finger. I've heard of tons of people making this mistake, so don't be one of them. So I'm just going to scoot this over. Let's say I just want to even up this side. I'll line up my ruler. I'm going to press firmly in sort of the center of the area that I'm cutting, of the fabric I'm cutting, and then I'm just going to glide along. And you shouldn't have to put too much pressure on that cut if your blade is new. If you find that you have to put a lot of pressure and you can really feel it in your wrist and your shoulder while you're cutting, if you have to put that much pressure on while you're cutting to make a clean cut, you need to replace your blade. It's time. If you find yourself being worried about cutting yourself with your rotary cutter, you can try wearing cut-resistant gloves. I've never personally used cut-resistant gloves, but I've heard of quilters who wear them religiously because they've had enough bad experiences. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check them out. I think they're usually used for cooking, but some quilters repurpose them for quilting. The key is to make calm, controlled cuts. You don't want your rotary cutter to veer off one way or the other, especially towards your fingers. So calm, controlled, and I recommend that you never, ever, ever use your rotary cutter if you're in a hurry or if you feel rushed, because that's when mistakes can happen. My very last tip for rotary cutters in this video is to always close the guard when you're not using the rotary cutter. This way you will avoid accidental nicks to your hands and fingers, like if it's just sitting here and you accidentally bump it, you won't get nicks that way. It'll keep your toes safe in case you accidentally knock it off the table towards your feet, and it also helps your blade last longer if you're not constantly bumping things into that blade and adding nicks and scrapes. So keep it closed when you're not using it. It's become so automatic for me, I don't even notice when I'm doing it. So I'll make a cut, I'll close it, put it aside, and then bring it back when I'm ready to use it again. So we have learned, respect the 360-degree blade, never let your finger overlap your cutting edge, make calm, controlled cuts, and close your blade when you're not using it. My golden rule for sewing machines is to turn off your machine whenever your fingers have to be near or underneath the needle. So if you're cleaning the machine and you need to take up your needle plate, if you're changing your presser feet, if you're changing your needle, or if you're threading your needle, turn this baby off. And you might be thinking that's sort of paranoid or overcautious, but I have heard of people literally sewing through their fingers, so I'd rather be overcautious than sew through my own fingers. So that's something that I definitely want you to keep in mind. If for some reason this is not a rule that you want to abide by, please be careful. Consider using some of the other objects that you have at hand, like your snips. These can help pull the loop through the needle. They can help get stuff underneath like this. I also have the purple thing, and that works in the same way. So something with a sharp end or a narrow tapered end can be a good way to go if you don't want to turn off your machine. But really, why not? It's such a quick thing to do, to turn it on and off again. I also recommend that you keep your machine off when you're not using it, because pets can get under there, little ones can get under there and accidentally push the pedal and cause mayhem. So definitely don't leave it on when it's unattended. And my last tip is to take your foot off of the pedal when you're not sewing. For the same reason, you don't want to accidentally bump it when you're not expecting it and end up hurting yourself or messing up your project. I'm assuming that most people have probably used an iron before, but I don't want to skip over it altogether. I'm going to try to be brief though, so we'll go over this real quick. So make sure you're using a stable surface that isn't likely to tip over. Set your iron down so that the hot plate is facing away from you so you don't accidentally knock it over or bump against that super hot plate. By the way, this iron is cold. It's not even plugged in, so. You also don't want to leave your iron down. Even if you think you're just going to leave it for a second, you're just turning around to do something else, because I tell you, seconds turn into minutes and then you've got a mess on your hands. You might also want to heat test fabrics because the different fabrics can react drastically different to heat. The material that most quilters use is cotton, or it might be called quilter's cotton. It's pretty hardy, but it can still get scorched if the iron is left in one place for too long. If you're using a fabric that you're unfamiliar with, you might want to do a heat test to make sure you don't melt it or scorch it. Never leave a hot iron unattended. And perhaps the tip most relevant to quilting is to keep track of your cord or get a cordless iron. As I said at the beginning of this video, quilters are often moving from cutting to sewing to pressing, and we don't want to trip over any cords accidentally. Those are all the safety tips I have for you for this video, but if you think I missed something, or if you have some personal tips you want to share with us, please leave them in the comment section below. Thanks for spending time with me today, quilters. If you want to support this channel and help me buy supplies and materials for future videos, please visit my Buy Me a Coffee page linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. And I'll see you again real soon. Bye!